This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. How do you replace one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL? It's a serious question, right? We all know that Bill Callahan is one of the better offensive line coaches, so much so that the loss of a position coach, which usually doesn't send the fan base into anything, kind of sent some of the fan base into a little bit of a panic here. So how do you replace an offensive line coach that respected, that experienced, that good at his job? How do you replace it? Well, you go out and you get one of the best up and coming offensive line coaches / run game coordinators in the NFL in Andy Dickerson. If you can't tell by the tone of the opening few minutes of this video, I am ecstatic about this hire. This is exactly what I feel like the Browns needed in this area. And if you are going to move on from Bill Callahan, this is a logical step to take here. I mentioned in my video about the Browns moving on from Bill Callahan that I know that he's a really well-respected coach and that he's done a great job here in Cleveland. But like any job, there comes a point to where the job is done and it's time for a different direction, no matter how good you are at a job. And I felt like that time had naturally come for Bill Callahan. It made a ton of sense because not only has that time come, but Brian Callahan was available, well, not just available, was a head coach somewhere. So you can take him in and kind of have a new journey working with your son. It just made the most sense for a mutual split from the Cleveland Browns and Bill Callahan in a way where nobody is disparaging the other, saying the other couldn't get the job done. It just makes a ton of sense to kind of go your separate ways, because while Bill Callahan has done a great job, he developed Wyatt Teller into what he is today, did a great job with DeJuan Jones, did a great job with Ethan Posick and getting him in the right spots. There comes a time where the team needs to change. And this offseason is a offseason of change for the offense, not just around the quarterback position, but completely, right? We've been so focused talking about the changes to this team as if Deshaun Watson is the only person that these changes are being made for. But these changes are not just being made for Deshaun Watson. They're being made for the run game. They're being made for the other wide receivers on the roster, so this offense is a better fit with them. They're being made for the other running backs on the roster. They're being made for the other offensive linemen. Hell, they're being made so that we can have a better prepared defense in the long run and be more modern and multiple and ready to adjust. Because one of the biggest problems with the Cleveland Browns last year, at least on the defensive side of the ball, was their inability to adjust to complex and advanced run schemes like the Seattle Seahawks ran against us, right? They were one of those teams that were able to get whatever they wanted with all of that misdirection and motion. It really messed the Browns up. And part of the reason I think it messed the Browns defense up so often and so easily was because the Browns defense was not used to going up against that, because what they're used to going up against was the Browns offense, which is very stagnant. Well, not stagnant, that's a bad description, which is very still pre-snap. They don't move around a lot. There's not a ton of misdirection, none of that stuff. So when they saw that in the game, kind of messed up their instincts. So I think this is also to make the defense better. Again, nobody ever wants to lose Bill Callahan. He's been a great resource to this team. His resume speaks for himself. As an offensive line coach, he's one of the best in the NFL. But I think Andy Dickerson has really made headwaves in the NFL for a really long time. He comes from that St. Louis, Los Angeles Rams tree. So a little bit of that old Jeff Fisher in there. Well, Jeff Fisher was a defensive mind, but that Sean McVay influence, obviously being with the Los Angeles Rams, he got a lot from there. He was the offensive run game coordinator and offensive line coach the last year in Seattle. And I think you walked away from Seattle very impressed with what Shane Waldron was doing. And by proxy, very impressed with what Andy Dickerson was doing with that run game. I think he is exactly what you needed here. I talked about it. If you're going to move from Bill Callahan, you want to get somebody who is experienced more in shotgun than Bill Callahan is. You want to get somebody who's experienced creating run games out of shotgun. You want to get somebody who's experienced getting some pre-snap motion in from the tight ends, offensive line, all of that. You want somebody who's experienced doing all of the advanced things that we want the Cleveland Browns to do going forward. And I think Andy Dickerson is great for that. I think that is a great hire. So I am all for this hire. I think this is a good move from the Cleveland Browns. Just straight up, not controversial to me. I feel like this is a great move here by the Cleveland Browns. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I feel similarly at February, the end of the first week of February. I feel similarly about the revamp going on within the coaching staffs of the offensive room, right? Now they're not changing out the whole offense like they did with the defense, but even with the defense, they kept the same base that they ran previously. They just changed who was in charge in Jim Schwartz. And I think that's a similar change that they're doing right now. They're keeping the same base offense, right? It's still going to be West Coast based in some way, similar to how McVay is still West Coast based, how Matt LaFleur is still West Coast based, how Shanahan is still West Coast based, right? Like you're going to still stay in that West Coast base, but you're going to kind of switch out some of the parts in the interior to kind of give it a refresh. And I think that's what they're really going for, is giving this offense a nice refresh. And if I'm looking at all the hires, I have to say I'm encouraged. I'm very encouraged. I'm as encouraged about the moves that they've made on offense as I am about the moves that they have made on defense. Now, Ken Dorsey is not of the same reputation as Jim Schwartz. It's like comparing apples and oranges, but I do think it's a good hire the more I think about it, right? You get somebody who not only has playing experience. I know that was Albert Breer's big complaint about the Browns letting go Alex Van Pelt, was that Alex Van Pelt had player experience and that he was a glue guy. Well, who knows? Ken Dorsey might be a glue guy too. He's a former player as well, but he has playing experience. And most importantly to me, he's somebody who's super experienced with guys like Cam Newton and Josh Allen. And it's funny to me because I was watching a couple sports talk segments who were talking about Josh Allen and Cam Newton as if they played two different styles of football. What are you watching? Cam Newton and Josh Allen play the same style of football, and that's similar, but not exact to what Deshaun Watson does, right? Deshaun Watson plays a little bit different of a brand of football than Cam and Josh Allen, partly because Deshaun's 6'2", 6'3", and not 6'6" like Josh Allen and Cam Newton are. And he's not going to lead your team in rushing attempts or be second in rushing attempts like Cam or Josh Allen can be, right? He's not that much of a runner. He's definitely predominantly more of a passer, especially more than like Cam or Josh Allen is. And he does a lot of his damage with accuracy as a passer, which is something that Josh Allen is a little iffy at. And the same thing was true for Cam Newton, even in his prime. So the experience working with somebody who's similar to Deshaun, but not exact, so you get to add some different things to the repertoire for Deshaun Watson that you learn from working with Cam, and that you learn from working with Josh Allen, and you get to bring that to this offense and what you want Deshaun Watson to do. And one of the big things that I wanted to stress during the coaching staff search was that it's real easy for people to want to just go back to that old thing. It's real easy for people to suggest that the Browns just go back to exactly what Deshaun used to run in 2020. It's easy for Deshaun to suggest that, and I don't think he has. It's easy for anybody to suggest that the Browns should just go back to whoever was running the offense for Deshaun in 2020, or get Bill O'Brien and just run that old thing. But one of the things I think should be stressed is that the NFL has advanced since Deshaun Watson played football in Houston. You cannot go back to the old thing and think you're going to be in the top 5 of the NFL. It's not happening. You can't go back 5 years of NFL progress and think that that's going to be what's up, right? You need to not only get Deshaun Watson comfortable, which is important. I think Ken Dorsey is going to do a lot to make sure that Deshaun Watson is much more comfortable than he was previously. But you also need to be able to push Deshaun Watson forward, right? He probably needs to play a play style where it's more about what he can do with his arm and less about how he can extend plays as an athlete. He probably needs to move in a direction, but I think there's a certain way to do it, and I don't think using him like Joe Flacco was a way to do it. So I think that these moves are headed in the right direction. I like the Tommy Rees hire. I like a lot of these hires that the Browns have had going forward. And this Andy Dickerson one is on the top of the cake, because really my big concern with Ken Dorsey was, while he did well in like run game, EPA, and all of that, we all know that the Buffalo Bills felt like a different running team before and after he got fired. I think people make too much of the passing offense got better when he was out. I don't think that's true. But I do think that the run game did take some strides, right? We started talking about James Cook a lot differently after Ken Dorsey was fired than we were while Ken Dorsey was still there. And I do think that's a little bit of a reflection on what Ken Dorsey wasn't getting right. And it was a concern of mine. It's like, okay, I don't know if I trust Ken Dorsey 100% with the run game, but if you get a strong offensive line coach in here to help with that run game, then I feel really good about where we're at as a staff. And Andy Dickerson is top on that list. So now that you have that nailed down, with Kevin at the top of this calling plays, I know people act like Kevin don't like running the ball, but he's always been in the top 5 of rushing attempts of all teams since he's been the coach at the play caller for the Cleveland Browns in 2020. So you know that you're going to continue to run the ball with Kevin at the top of this, and you're going to have hopefully some more advanced schemes, and maybe you can even run RPO and some other stuff off of that. I really think that this Browns move is going in the right direction. This feels really good to me, what they're doing on the offensive side of the ball. It's all going to depend on if Watson can stay healthy, and I think that's a big question. But if he can stay healthy and you can make a couple signings right at wide receiver, maybe a backup running back, I start to get excited about what this team could look like. But so far, so good. I was a bit nervous about it when the news first came out that they got rid of Alex Van Pelt. I think a lot of people were a bit nervous about it, right? Because change makes us nervous in Cleveland because we're not used to making changes that are going to help make the team better. We're usually used to changes that are just purely destructive because we want to blow up everything in the building. So for those of us who want to keep everything as similar as possible, keep some continuity in that building, that made us a little nervous for sure. But these moves feel like really good, tighten the screws moves. You're getting some really qualified coaches in here, some really good candidates, some guys who have some really relevant experience we've got. And I really am excited. Like, you brought in somebody who has a lot of experience doing what teams are doing in college, so you can get ahead of the curve a little bit, because usually college is a little bit faster along in some of these advancements than the pro game is. So you got Tommy Rees to kind of get you hip on what teams are doing out of college for these wide receivers, for these quarterbacks, everybody involved. And I really think that I feel a lot better about the collaboration process going into rebuilding this offense this year than I felt about it last year. And then I felt about it just a month ago when all of this stuff happened. I really think that they're going in the right direction here. But that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.